The bell rang sharply, signaling the start of another school day. The classroom buzzed with the chatter of children, their lunchboxes clattering against desks as they settled in. But in the far corner, a small boy sat quietly, clutching his worn backpack tightly. 8-year-old Danny's face was pale, his eyes darting nervously as he pulled out his battered lunchbox. Inside was a simple peanut butter sandwich wrapped in wax paper, and a small note scribbled in shaky handwriting. Unbeknownst to Danny, his teacher, Miss Collins, watched him closely from her desk. The boy's tattered clothes and scuffed shoes told a story she couldn't ignore. When lunchtime arrived, Danny unfolded the note from his mother and read it quickly. His hands trembling, Miss Collins noticed and approached him gently. "Danny, is everything okay?" she asked softly. The boy's eyes filled with tears as he handed her the note. She read it and felt her heart break. It said, "Dear Miss Collins, I'm sorry we can't afford much for Danny's lunch. Please look after him. Sincerely, Mrs. Thompson." Little did Mrs. Thompson know, her humble note would set off a chain of events that would change their lives forever. Danny and his mother, Sarah Thompson, lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Life hadn't always been this hard. Sarah once worked as a secretary at a bustling law firm, and her husband Tom had been a skilled mechanic. Together they built a modest but happy life for their son. But 3 years ago, tragedy struck. Tom was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and within months, Sarah found herself a widow, drowning in medical bills she couldn't pay, forced to leave her job to care for Tom during his final days. Sarah's finances crumbled. She took on part-time cleaning jobs, but it was never enough to make ends meet. Danny, once a cheerful and outgoing boy, grew quiet and withdrawn. He often wore hand-me-down clothes, and Sarah could barely scrape together enough for his school. Supplies. Sarah's greatest worry was Danny's nutrition. She tried her best to provide for him, but most days, his lunch consisted of a simple sandwich or a piece of fruit if she could afford it. Embarrassed and ashamed, Sarah decided to include a note in his lunchbox, hoping his teacher would understand their situation. Meanwhile, Miss Collins, Danny's teacher, had noticed the boy's quiet demeanor and his reluctance to join his classmates during lunch. A dedicated and compassionate educator, Miss Collins had always believed that a teacher's role extended beyond academics. She often went out of her way to support her students, but she had never encountered a situation quite like this. When she read Sarah's note, Miss Collins knew she had to act. She couldn't stand by and let one of her students struggle in silence. Determined to help, she decided to pay a visit to the Thompsons' home that evening. After school, Miss Collins drove to the address listed in the school records. The neighborhood was run down with peeling paint on houses and overgrown lawns. She parked her car in front of a small, weathered apartment building and climbed the creaky stairs to the 3rd floor. Her knock on the door was answered by Sarah, who looked both surprised and embarrassed to see her son's teacher standing there. "Miss Collins?" Sarah asked, her voice tinged with apprehension. "Mrs. Thompson, I hope I'm not intruding," Miss Collins said kindly. "I wanted to talk to you about Danny." Sarah's shoulders slumped, and she gestured for the teacher to come inside. The apartment was small but tidy, with mismatched furniture and a faint smell of cleaning products. Danny sat at the kitchen table, working on his homework. He looked up nervously but relaxed when Miss Collins smiled at him. As they sat down, Miss Collins pulled out the note Sarah had written. "I read your message today," she began gently. "I want you to know that Danny is a wonderful boy and you're doing an amazing job. But I can see that things have been difficult for you lately." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes. "I'm trying my best," she admitted, her voice breaking. "But it feels like no matter what I do, it's never enough." Miss Collins reached across the table and took Sarah's hand. "You're not alone," she said firmly. "I want to help, but I'll need your permission." Sarah hesitated, torn between pride and desperation. Finally, she nodded. "What do you have in mind?" Miss Collins explained her plan to rally the school community to support the Thompsons. She wanted to organize a fundraiser, collect donations, and create a support network to ensure Danny and his mother had the resources they needed. Sarah was overwhelmed by the teacher's kindness, but agreed to accept the help. The next day, Miss Collins shared Danny's story with the school principal, who wholeheartedly supported the initiative. They began by discreetly reaching out to parents and staff, explaining the family's situation and asking for donations. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Parents sent in food, clothing, and school supplies. One local business even offered to sponsor Danny's lunches for the rest of the year. Ms. Collins also organized a bake sale to raise additional funds. The entire school community came together, with students, parents, and teachers contributing. Homemade treats? The event was a huge success, raising enough money to cover not only Danny's immediate needs, but also some of Sarah's overdue bills. Meanwhile, Sarah was unaware of the full extent of the support being organized. She continued her cleaning jobs, grateful for the small gestures of kindness she had already received. One evening, Miss Collins arrived at the Thompsons' apartment with a large box filled with groceries, clothes for Danny, and an envelope containing the funds raised at the bake sale. Sarah was speechless. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "You don't have to," Miss Collins replied. "This is what a community does for each other." But the most significant moment came during a school assembly a week later. The principal invited Sarah and Danny to attend as special guests. Unbeknownst to them, the assembly was dedicated to honoring their resilience and rallying further support. As the principal spoke about the importance of kindness and community, she invited Sarah to the stage. Nervously, Sarah took the microphone. "I never expected this," she began, her voice trembling. "I thought we were alone, but you've shown me that there's so much kindness in the world. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." The audience erupted in applause, and Danny beamed with pride as he hugged his mother. For the first time in years, they felt a sense of hope and belonging. In the weeks that followed, life began to change for the Thompsons. Sarah used the funds from the bake sale to pay off her most pressing debts and enrolled in a job training program offered by a local nonprofit. Danny's confidence grew as he no longer had to worry about being different from his classmates. He made new friends and even joined the school's art club, where he discovered a talent for drawing. Ms. Collins continued to check in on the family, offering support and encouragement. She also used their story to inspire her students, teaching them about empathy and the importance of helping others. One day, Danny presented Miss Collins with a drawing he had made. It depicted her as a superhero, surrounded by smiling children. "You're my hero, Miss Collins," he said shyly. Tears filled her eyes as she hugged him. "No, Danny," she replied. "You're the real hero. Your strength and your mother's love inspired all of this." With the community's support, Sarah found a stable job, and their financial situation gradually improved. Danny continued to thrive at school, his artistic talents earning him recognition in a local art competition. The bond between mother and son grew even stronger, fortified by the challenges they had overcome together. Ms. Collins' initiative sparked a movement within the school, encouraging other families to come forward and support one another. The story of the Thompsons became a testament to the power of kindness and community, inspiring countless acts of generosity. As Sarah tucked Danny into bed one evening, he looked up at her and said, "Mom, do you think we'll ever need to write another note like that again?" Sarah smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "No, sweetheart, because now we know we're never alone." If this story moved you, remember that even the smallest act of kindness can make a world of difference. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories that celebrate the power of compassion and resilience. Share this video to remind others of the impact they can have by lending a helping hand. Together, we can create a world where no one has to face their struggles alone.